Good evening. I am Melissa Dancy Smith, Assistant Superintendent of Academic Services and Accountability. It is my honor to welcome you to tonight's Connect, Inform, Engage Parent Guardian webinar. Our topic for this evening is Promotion and Accountability Standards. The Nash County Public Schools Board of Education believes that every learner should progress to the next level of study only after they have demonstrated proficiency in their knowledge and skills of the current curriculum level. The school board has charged the superintendent to devise a process to be used in determining a student's readiness for the next level of study. Tonight, Robin Griffin, who's the Director of Testing and Accountability, will share this process with you. After which, a distinguished panel of school principals and district leaders have assembled, and they will respond to questions from the viewing audience through the question answer box regarding the new standards. These new requirements are intended to ensure that every student meets the minimum and state local standards of academic achievement. It is our hope that these standards will serve as a roadmap in providing our students with the opportunity to learn, grow, and successfully transition into the post-secondary plans of their choice. These plans could include, but are not limited to, the United States Armed Forces, going directly into the workforce, enrolling in one of our community colleges, or a four-year university. We want to arm our students with the opportunity to make a choice. I'll leave you with this quote: "Education is for improving the lives of others and for leaving your community better than you found it." Miriam Wright Elderman.
Good evening, everyone who's joining us on the webinar. My name is Dr. Chris Catalano, and I am the Executive Director of Strategic Planning and Engagement. I'm going to just take you through a couple logistical items before we get started with our presentation tonight. So Ms. Dancy Smith just went through our agenda. We'll have a brief presentation and then a question and answer panel before closing out for the evening. You have in your Zoom platform a couple boxes. We're going to ask that if you have any questions of the panelists, that you use the box that says Q&A to type your questions. This will allow us to record the questions and have them so that we can put out a document after this session with a frequently asked questions. So if you could, during the presentation and during the panel, if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask of us, you can use that Q&A box there. There's also a chat that we have a moderator who will be moderating the chat as well. So those two items are there for your use. I am now going to turn things over to Robin Griffin, our Director of Testing and Accountability.
Good evening. So tonight we are going to talk about the student accountability standards, and Mrs. Dancy Smith spoke relatively clearly about the policy 3420, which is the school board policy that requires the superintendent to produce a document that has a progress to the next level standard for each student. This policy is required to have multiple measures or multiple criteria for evaluating a student's readiness to go to the next standard. And it must address that the schools will meet the students' needs throughout the course of the school year. So I just wanted to briefly remind you of the mandated state and federal assessments that will be a component of the accountability standard for Nash County Public Schools. We have English language arts assessments at grades 3 through 8 and 10. We have mathematics assessments at grades 3 through 8, and then at high school, Math 1 and Math 3. And then we have science assessments at grades 5, 8, and then biology. So the proficiency levels are set by the state and the federal government. And in North Carolina, there are 4 accountability proficiency levels. A level 5 says that a student demonstrates comprehensive understanding of the grade level content. A level 4 says a student demonstrates thorough understanding. A level 3 is sufficient understanding, and a not proficient means that the student has an inconsistent understanding of the grade level content. In North Carolina, levels 3, 4, and 5 are considered proficient, and those are the standards that we will work within for Nash County Schools looking at the accountability model. We strongly believe that students have to be in school in order to learn. So part of the accountability standard is that students will be in attendance for grades K through 5. The expectation is a minimum of 85% of the time. And for grades 6 through 13, the expectation is a minimum of 90% of the school time. We also can consider teacher grades very important, and student completing all of their schoolwork with due diligence. So in grades K2, we're looking at level 3s in reading and math. For grade level 3, and you'll notice here there's a little asterisk, and level 3 is a little bit different because it is bound by the Read to Achieve legislation. And so there are a few other little items in there that go into making grade 3 decisions, but we've also incorporated those same things into the Nash County standards. So for grade 3, we're looking at a score of 60 or above for reading, math, science, and social studies. Grades 4 through 8, we're looking at 60 or above for reading, math, science, or social studies. And then in grades 9 through 13 in the high school years, we're looking at those core content areas of English, math, science, history, and social studies. So we have stressed multiple times throughout the presentation the importance of multiple measures. A student's promotion to the next grade will never hinge on simply one standard or one indicator. We're going to make sure that we look at as many data points as possible for each student. We'll be looking at, again, attendance, grades, standardized assessments, local benchmarks, student work artifacts. All available work pieces can be considered as we're looking at the process of making decisions about promoting students to the next grade. We also know that personal situations, family, and unforeseen circumstances can play into a student's school year. We've really learned that in the world of COVID. So if those kinds of things, a personal situation, a family situation, those kinds of things, impact a student's learning or attendance during the course of a school year, those situations will also be considered when making promotion decisions for that individual student.
Good evening. Before we begin taking your questions, I would like to introduce our distinguished panel. We have Mr. Quentin Mangano, who's the principal of Nashville Elementary School. Ms. Christy Grant, who is our Executive Director of Exceptional Children and Student Support Services. Mr. Michael Gerard, who's the principal of Edwards Middle School. Dr. Mary Jones, principal of Southern Nash Middle School. Ms. Courtney Land, principal of Winstead Elementary. Ms. Monique Hargrove Jones, the Executive Director of Elementary Education. And last, but certainly not least, Mr. Chad Thompson, who's the Executive Director of Secondary Education and CTE. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dancy Smith. So I am going to start us off with some questions that we had pre-submitted. I would like to remind those of you who are on the webinar with us on Zoom to use the question and answer box to go ahead and submit some questions if you have any for our panelists. But just to get us started, our first question that we had sent in prior to this evening is, how can I, as a parent, stay on top of my child's progress?
I would say that there's a few things that are sort of like easy answers to this question. And those come in the form of digital tools that you can access at home, anywhere you are, at home, at work. These things for elementary school include Dojo. That's a way to stay in contact with your teacher and know what's happening. One of the more important ones would be to sign up for the parent portal, where you have access to all of the students' information, grades, attendance, very critical information through the parent portal. Students have Google Classroom and Seesaw. Those are areas that you can look to track their progress and work with assignments in the classroom. Some of the more old school methods, I guess, would just be to have parent conferences or set up a time to meet with your child's teacher. I think it's important to do that in person if you can, or you can use, obviously, the phone is a good way to communicate with them, and email. I think those are kind of the surface level things that you can do and that you really have to do in order to stay up to date with where your child is. But I think the more impactful way that you can, as a parent, know how your child is doing is to be very aware of what they can do and to be very aware of what they're expected to do at their grade level. If you know that, then you're going to be much more likely to be able to assist them and find areas where they're struggling or where they have gaps. I think it's important that your child knows that you know that. If they understand that you know what they're supposed to be learning and you understand exactly where they are and that you're working with them and helping them, that goes a long way in their wanting to rise to your expectation as a parent. They know that you want them to succeed. And if they see that in your daily action with them, then they're going to respond to that. I think it's also important that they know that you're in contact with their teacher, and that they can, you're going to be responsive to the things that the teacher needs, and the child's going to, again, live up to those expectations for the teachers and for you at home. And then finally, I think it's really important that you just engage with your child about their learning. And it doesn't have to mean that you quiz them every day they get home. A lot of times, if you ask your child, how was the day, or how was your day, you usually will get just a quick answer, or what'd you do today? And you might not get a real good answer, but engage them a little bit and ask some just more detailed questions. Let them know that you're interested. And if they begin to feel that bond and comfort level at home, then I think that you're going to really have a better idea of where they stand with where they're supposed to be.
Thank you, Mr. Magino. I would like to remind our webinar participants that you are free to ask any questions that you have in the question and answer box, which you should be able to access by clicking on the black bar that is either at the top or the bottom of your screen. We do have one question here. If my child doesn't pass the end of grade or end of course assessment, will they be retained?
The answer to that question can also be found on the multiple measures slide in the presentation, but the EOG and EOC are a single assessment that's administered at the end of the school year. Decisions about promotion and retention are made using multiple data points collected throughout the school year. So those data points, as Mrs. Griffin stated, can be a student's scores or grades on quizzes, tests, assignments, projects, other local and state assessments. So while EOGs and EOCs are certainly considered, they are not the sole determining factor in the decision to promote or retain a student.
Thank you. Okay, we have another question. Who do I call if my child is having difficulty or I have a question about their progress? And this is specific to early elementary students, I think.
All right, I will take that one. I actually had this one come up today at school. I think with COVID going on, this question is arising a little more than normal in the normal years. But just like Mr. Mangano said, do not hesitate to reach out and contact your child's teacher. Our district, we do have a multi-tier system of support set up in every school. So our students are receiving a strong core in the classroom, also interventions that are taking place daily where they're getting progress monitored, and then students are getting pulled out as needed. So early interventions is key to this, staying in contact with your child's teacher. Interventions should have already taken or started by now, this late in the school year. So just talk with your child's teacher and see where they are in the intervention process. The first set of interventions is based off a child's lowest skill or either the lowest standard, where they're having the most areas of concern. So reach out to your child's teacher. They will receive 8 weeks of interventions if the child progresses and they're having success with those interventions, and they will continue with those interventions and then move to a new skill. If the child is still having some concerns or with the interventions, then they will get a new set of interventions with progress monitoring. And then if that continues, we will sit down as a team with the parent included and discuss the next steps. So at each and every school, we do have the multi-tier system of support set up so that we can close those achievement gaps. But of course, the first step is reaching out to the child's teacher if they have not already reached out to you.
Thank you, Ms. Land. Okay, we have another question. What can I do as a parent to help my child meet the promotion standards? This one's for anyone.
I think I guess one of the more important things is that we keep their attendance high, so that we talk a lot about making sure we stay healthy and have our kids be in a way that they can be at school and engaged. If they're attending school, kids who have perfect attendance or are at school with a really high rate have a much more likely chance to succeed because they're getting that consistent instruction. So I feel like the attendance piece is a big step in starting that process. We talk about, taking tests, and we know that our students' grades are going to matter. So as parents, we need to be aware of when our kids are taking tests, when they have to turn assignments in, just being aware of the things that our kids are being asked to do. And it's a little bit maybe harder as students get older, but you can also put a little bit more on your child the older they get. So I think it's important to just ask the questions and be aware of what the kids are having to get done and doing it on time so that they are feeling some success. And if they're turning in their assignments and they're preparing for tests at the right time, then they're just going to be better prepared to meet the standards that are set. State tests are a big thing, but they're not the only thing. but we do know we have to prepare for them. So if you're in school and you're doing your assignments and you're working, then you're preparing yourself throughout the year for it, which puts a little bit less pressure on you as a parent and them as a child to perform on a test that carries so much weight. So it's important also as you prepare, as test time comes and gets closer, we have to have our kids be prepared, which means we have to stress the importance of the tests, but we also have to balance that by not adding so much pressure that we turn that into an anxiety level that causes more issues than it helps. So it's important for parents to kind of see the big picture and understand the importance of those tests, but also understand that you have a role in making sure your child's mentally prepared to take that type of an assessment.
And Mr. Mangano, if I can piggyback off of you as well, I believe on the district, parents, it's a great opportunity for you to go online on the district's webpage and check out under the academics and look at our curriculum maps so that you can follow along with what your child is learning in the classroom, so that you'll know exactly what they're teaching in the school, what they're learning about, the topics, so that you can follow along and help at home as well. And always hold your child to high expectations.
Thank you, Ms. Land. We do have another question from the chat this evening. If your child is an at-home learner, I think they're referring to Virtual Academy, and one of the teachers doesn't seem to be checking assignments or grading them, how can a parent handle that?
So if we're talking about NETA, then you can definitely call Sherry Wells, who is the coordinator at NETA. She will help you out tremendously. I would say definitely contact the teacher as well. And if you're talking about a minimum course, then you can contact those teachers as well. Your students have access to each one of those teachers where they can email the teacher and ask for answers and the reasons that those things are not happening.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Okay, we have another question here. My child was quarantined for 10 days. How would that impact the attendance expectations and the promotion standards?
So I can answer that one. Recently, having worked through this in a school setting, first and foremost, when you're quarantined, our nurses are working diligently to make sure that they're communicating information with the parents. And also, quarantined students, their absences are excused. We capture that data in our online platform, PowerSchool, and those are considered excused absences. The parents can support their students by making sure while they're quarantined that they're accessing their online management system and they're staying up with their work when they're able to. We realize, though, as referred to in Ms. Griffin's presentation, that things occur such as illness, and being quarantined, again, is an excused absence.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. So we have another question. If my child misses days, can they make up the absences so it doesn't impact their attendance expectations for the promotion and accountability standards?
So I can address that. Students can make up their work that they've missed while they're absent. Again, the absences that were referred to in the presentation, we consider the holistic child when we are considering promotion and retention. Remember, we use multiple measures that we'll be considering in our teams, and we look at those students carefully and consider all of their work that they've done and all of the work and their EOGs and other measures. In addition, parents frequently receive notifications about attendance. When a child has missed 3 days, that is sent to the parents as well as a 6-day and a 10-day letter. You get those notifications because we're following the compulsory attendance law that's outlined in our board policies. ever you have a question about attendance, please contact the school. You can speak with the child's teacher directly if you question anything regarding the attendance.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Okay, we have another question. What happens if my child does not meet the promotion standards at the end of the year?
Okay, so we have a process for this, and just as everyone has stated today, we want to keep in light of multiple measures. So the school will create a committee to evaluate the student's data. The school committee members will make a recommendation. This recommendation will be sent to our superintendent, and the superintendent will turn these names over to a committee that's made up of central office administrators, staff, and principals. The committee will vet all information. Once again, those multiple measures, looking at all data that's related to the student not meeting those promotional standards. Once all information is analyzed, the committee will then make a recommendation back to the principal to promote or retain.
Let me just interject a
Thank
little
you.
bit because that's absolutely correct. I think the big component of this moving through the years is communication, just like anything else. And certainly, the options have been shared with parents. The parent portal is huge. I advocate for that. Just if you're not in tune with that now, please do call the school. They can get that set up very easily. Also phone calls, meetings has been shared. There's this when it relates to learning and achievement, you can't over communicate that. But we are there to support you in any way we can. So just let us know in the collective body here, however we can do that. But I think, everything being stated and equal, communication does stand out as being a main component to this.
Okay, we have one additional question in the chat, and I will encourage anyone who's on our webinar to go ahead and post some questions if you have any that we can follow up with. So question, my child has an IEP. What are the promotion standards for them?
Okay, and I'll take this one. As Ms. Dancy Smith stated in the opening, we do believe that all students with disabilities, as well as all students in our district, can achieve at the same levels. And to the greatest extent possible, students with disabilities are held to the same promotion standards. We do give consideration to the progress toward IEP goals in the individualized education plan, and promotion decisions for students who take alternative assessment or the Extend 1, as you may know it, in lieu of taking the integrate or the end of course. We base the criteria for promotion retention on is recommended by the IEP team. So we do look at attendance as well, and the input of the parent is, of course, a part of that. So we do believe that all students can achieve and hold high expectations for everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Okay, so we do have a question. It's another NETA question, but if Ms. Graves, if you could rephrase your question, are we going to extend? I see what it is. It will the NETA program continue into next year, kind of related, but not.
I'll respond to this one. We believe that online education or a digital learning environment is something that we would like to continue to offer to our families. We do plan to send out a survey early spring just to garner the interest in NETA for the upcoming school year. But we do believe that families should have choice. And if an online learning environment is the best educational experience for their child, we would like to provide that for families.
Thank you, Ms. Dancy Smith. Okay, it looks like that may be the last of our questions. I'll just send one more invitation out to anyone who's on the webinar with us to go ahead and type your questions in the chat box so that, or in the question and answer box so that we can answer them for you. Okay. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared out on our social media and our district website pages. So we will have this available for anyone who missed the session or anyone who would like to go back and review any of the answers. We will also have the slide presentation that was used this evening by Ms. Griffin available on our website as well. So you'll be able to access that. And there's also a one-page document that is located on our website that has all of the expectation numbers on it. So all of that data that Ms. Griffin was talking through is there in our on our website as well. So one last call for any questions that anyone has. And if not, we are going to call it an evening. I would like to thank everyone for joining us this evening and just pull up some information here. So again, as has been reiterated several times this evening, your first point of contact is your child's teacher and your child's principal. There is a link on this slide under the word principal to our district website. It is www.ncpschools.net. And you can get all of the information that I just shared with you, as well as contact information for your school and the principal who is at your school. Okay, you know what? I think we do have 2 additional questions up here. So I am going to pause here and go back to our panelists, since it's technically not 7 o'clock and we've got a little extra time. So let me stop my sharing and go back to our panelists. So, okay, this one is specific to NITA. I'm sorry. So Ms. Dancy Smith, I'm going to ask it of you. Do parents need to talk to the NITA coordinator to continue them in the NITA program if they're already in NITA?
Our intention is to first survey all of our NITA students, and we would like to know who would like to return, because we have to take that into consideration when we look at the enrollment for 22-23, after which we will send a survey out to all other students just to see who is interested in joining NITA. So the answer is yes, but it will be through a survey so we can accurately capture that data. The timeline is January for our NITA students, and then within a couple of weeks, we'll send it out district-wide.
Okay, and we had one additional question. So how do benchmark assessments play into the promotion standards, if at all?
So benchmarking is a means for us to see where the student is at that point in time. So that is a measure for us to make some data decisions on where the student is. And then from there, we're able to make some educational decisions and academic decisions on where we need to move forward for these students. And we can allow our principals who work with these benchmarks daily to answer that question as well.
So I would like to speak to that. Our recent benchmarks, we take one at the beginning of the year and throughout the year. We're specifically looking at our students' progress on the standards. And so with that in mind, we actually drill down on the standards and then adjust instruction. We also create, as Courtney referenced a while ago, that we create some tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. And so we're very strategic after we get that data and we review it. So that's how we use it so that we can support the students. And also it helps us adjust our instruction in case there's standards that we need to go back and reteach or either that need extended learning.
At the elementary level, we do the same. We have our intervention time where we look at the benchmark data and we put our students in groups based off of the data.
Okay, thank you. I really do think these are that was the last question now. So I am going to go back to our slides here and just close us out for the evening. So Miss Royster, Michelle Royster is our parent involvement coordinator, parent engagement coordinator, and she was not able to be with us tonight, but I did want to share her contact information. Parents, if you need anything or have any questions, especially specifically about parent portal or just engaging with your school or anything that you need, Miss Royster is available to answer any questions and help you out. Also, Miss Melissa Dancy Smith spoke and introduced our session tonight, and her contact information is on this slide as well. Again, she is the Assistant Superintendent for Academics and Accountability. And so these promotion standards and the policy and the data around them fall into her department. So if you've got any questions for the district level, she would be the person that you would want to reach out to for an answer. And our next Connect, Inform, Engage webinar is going to be on November 2nd, same time, 6 p.m. The topic has not been determined yet, but we will be announcing that over the next week or so. So that you can go ahead and mark your calendars for that. Our goal this year is to have, as much as possible, one webinar session for our parents and guardians each month on a different topic, just to give you some information related to various things and initiatives that are going on in the district. I would like to thank our panelists as well as our Academics and Accountability Department for being with us this evening, and thank all of our parents and guardians who were on Zoom with us for joining and listening and engaging with what we had to share this evening. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.